Don't run from the process, because the very thing you're trying to escape is the thing designed to elevate you. Every time life stretches you, every time pressure tightens around you, every time circumstances seem unfair, unbearable, or unpredictable, something sacred is happening beneath the surface. Growth is taking place. Strength is forming. Identity is being carved out of the raw material of your struggle. But you'll never see the masterpiece if you keep running away from the chiseling. Most people pray for transformation but flee from the very conditions that produce it. They ask for strength but reject resistance. They ask for clarity but avoid the quiet places where clarity is born. They ask for elevation but run from the weight that builds the character to sustain elevation. But hear this, destiny is not delivered through convenience. Purpose doesn't show up in comfort. The process is not a punishment. It is the mechanism through which greatness is formed. You cannot skip the hard parts and expect the promise to still hold its shape. There are lessons you can only learn in the dark. There are versions of yourself that only emerge under pressure. There are depths in you that comfort will never demand. And every time you try to run, you delay your becoming. You postpone the breakthrough. You reset the development. The process is not trying to break you. It's trying to introduce you to the part of you that you haven't met yet. The part of you that is resilient, courageous, disciplined, focused, and ready for the next dimension of your life. Running might feel easier in the moment, but it robs you of the future you were designed for. Running keeps you circling the same mountains, repeating the same patterns, facing the same fears. The process teaches you what escape never will. It teaches you endurance. It teaches you strategy. It teaches you wisdom. It teaches you how to stand when everything inside you wants to fall apart. It teaches you how to keep moving even when the path is unclear. There will be seasons when the process feels lonely, when people don't understand your journey, when prayers seem unanswered, when doors stay closed longer than you expected, when nothing you're working towards seems to be producing visible results. These are not signs that you're off track. They are signs that you are in the middle of becoming. The roots always grow before the fruit appears. The foundation is always built before the structure rises. The unseen work always precedes the visible results. You can't run from the pressure that's shaping you. You can't run from the lessons that prepare you. You can't run from the discipline that strengthens you. You can't run from the stretching that expands your capacity. What you face now is equipping you for what you've been asking for. If the future version of you could speak, they say, stay right where you are. Don't bail out. Don't fold. Don't quit. The version of me you become depends on the decisions you make in this process. Every calling has a cost. Every dream has a demand. Every elevation requires excavation of old habits, old beliefs, old fears, old patterns. The process digs deep so your life can rise high. If you run now, you'll have to come back later, because the promise cannot be accessed without the process. And the process will wait as long as it needs to until you stop running and decide to grow through it instead of trying to go around it. There is strength in you that you have not yet tapped into. There is wisdom in you that has not yet been awakened. There is power in you that has not yet been activated. The process is not your enemy. It is your training ground. Stand in it. Learn from it. Let it refine you, stretch you, strengthen you, and prepare you. The process is not here to take anything from you. It is here to give you everything you will need for what is coming next. The process is not punishment. It is the invisible workshop where identity is sculpted and strength is forged. But when you are in the middle of it, drenched in uncertainty and surrounded by questions you can't easily answer, it rarely feels that way. It feels like delay. It feels like denial. It feels like something has gone wrong with your life, your plans, or even your calling. Yet the truth is that the very things you interpret as signs of rejection are often the proof of your refinement. What you think is God holding back is actually God holding you together while he prepares you for more than you asked for. Most people want elevation without endurance, promotion without preparation, victory without vulnerability. They pray for the mountaintop but resist the climb. They want the crown but shrink from the weight of the molding. What they don't understand is that shortcuts sabotage destiny. If you reach the right place at the wrong time, that place becomes the wrong place. Process is the divine pacing that keeps you from stepping into a season your character cannot sustain. When the process is active in your life, it doesn't announce itself politely. It doesn't ask for permission to disrupt your comfort zone. It doesn't wait for a convenient moment to expose your weak spots. It comes with the intention of stretching you, reshaping you, renewing you. It will pull you away from old patterns that you've grown familiar with. It will strip away habits, relationships, and mindsets that can't go with you into the next dimension. And if you're not careful, you will mistake this holy disruption as an attack instead of an invitation to grow. Look back at the seasons you thought were the worst moments of your life, not the curated versions you share with people today, but the raw, unfiltered chapters you barely survived. Now notice something. Those seasons didn't destroy you. They developed you. The pain you endured made you more disciplined. The loneliness taught you how to stand on your own 2 feet. The uncertainty taught you how to trust. The failure taught you humility, strategy, and resilience. What you learned in the dark became the wisdom that guides you in the light. That is the assignment of the process, to reveal the strength that was hidden inside you all along. Every time you ask, why is this happening to me? The process is asking you, why not? Why shouldn't you be the one to evolve? Why shouldn't you be the one to grow? Why shouldn't you be the one to shed the old skin that no longer fits who you are becoming? Growth demands sacrifice. Transformation demands pressure. The version of you that you admire in your imagination cannot exist without the battles you are facing in reality. The struggle is not a sign of distance from your purpose. It is the doorway to it. The process also exposes the conversations you have with yourself. When things are easy, you don't have to confront your inner voice. But when life stretches you, the truth of your inner dialogue rises to the surface. Do you speak power to yourself, or do you speak defeat? Do you encourage yourself, or do you collapse into doubt? The process forces you to wrestle with the parts of your identity that are still insecure, still afraid, still fragile. It demands that you build an inner language strong enough to carry the weight of your destiny. Even the delays, which seem the most frustrating, carry purpose. A delay is not a denial, it is a design. Sometimes you are delayed because the thing you're praying for is not ready. Other times you are the one who's not ready. And occasionally both sides need time to align, time to heal, time to grow, time to mature. There are blessings that would break you if they arrived too early. There are opportunities that would overwhelm you if you walked through the door before your foundation was secure. There are people you're meant to meet, but if you met them in your former state, you would sabotage the connection. The delay protects you from premature exposure. What feels like divine silence is often divine construction. What feels like stillness is strategic positioning. What feels like being overlooked is often preparation happening behind the scenes. The process is working even when you can't see evidence of progress. Growth is often hidden until it suddenly becomes undeniable. And in those moments when nothing seems to be changing, something in you is being strengthened, sharpened, and aligned, whether you recognize it or not. Your inner dialogue sets the temperature of your destiny, regulating the climate of your life long before anything changes on the outside. Long before your feet ever step into a new season, your mind walks into it first. Your thoughts build the emotional weather patterns you live under: sunshine, storms, droughts, or harvests. And the truth is, most people are not defeated by circumstances. They are defeated by conversations happening silently within themselves. Your destiny doesn't begin with the opportunities that come your way. It begins with the words you speak when you're alone. When the inner voice is fearful, you will shrink. When the inner voice is defeated, you will give up. When the inner voice is confused, you will hesitate. But when the inner voice is strengthened, clarified, disciplined, and aligned with truth, you walk differently, stand differently, and choose differently. The world outside will always echo the world inside. You can't have an internal climate of self-doubt and expect to produce an external harvest of courage. You can't rehearse insecurity internally and perform confidence publicly. What you say inwardly eventually becomes what you live outwardly. Most of us have trained our minds to be harsher critics than supportive companions. We speak to ourselves with tones we would never use on another person. That inner commentary becomes the thermostat. And without realizing it, we live in rooms built by our own words. You say, "I can't," and the temperature drops. You say, "I'm not enough," and the atmosphere becomes cold. You say, "Maybe one day," and everything freezes. But the moment you shift the dialogue, the moment you speak with authority to your own soul, the climate begins to warm. Thoughts melt, pressure loosens, courage rises. The temperature of your destiny is not changed by motivational bursts. It is changed by the consistency of your internal language. It's not what you tell yourself once in a moment of hype. It's what you whisper to yourself every day when nobody is watching.
The enemy doesn't need to steal your opportunities if he can hijack your inner dialogue. If he can get you to agree with thoughts of
Inadequacy, insecurity, and insignificance, he doesn't need to close doors. You'll stop approaching them yourself. If he can convince you that your voice doesn't matter, you'll silence yourself. If he can convince you that you're too late, you'll stop pursuing purpose. And none of it will be because of your circumstances. It will be because your inner dialogue set the temperature too low for growth. Your mind is either a greenhouse where dreams grow or a freezer where they die. The difference lies in the conversation you are having with yourself. You must learn to speak life even when your environment doesn't match your confession. You must learn to remind yourself who you are when feelings try to convince you otherwise. You must learn to interrupt the old scripts that keep pulling you backward. Reprogramming your inner dialogue is not a one-day task. It is the daily discipline of replacing lies with truth, replacing fear with faith, replacing doubt with determination. People often wait for external validation to feel empowered, but real empowerment is born internally. When your inner voice affirms your identity, external applause becomes optional. When your inner voice believes in your assignment, external rejection loses its sting. When your inner voice understands your value, you stop negotiating with environments that cannot handle you. Destiny becomes unstable only when your inner dialogue is unstable. Some of the greatest breakthroughs in life begin with a single shift in internal language. A moment where you say, "I can do this," and suddenly pathways appear. A moment where you say, "I deserve to heal," and suddenly your heart opens. A moment where you say, "I am worthy of more," and suddenly your standards rise. Nothing moves until your mind moves. You elevate your life by elevating your language. Think of every major step you've ever taken. Before you made the decision, you had a conversation with yourself. You debated, you reasoned, you encouraged or discouraged yourself. The step didn't start with your feet, it started with your thoughts. And the more you grow, the more crucial that inner dialogue becomes. It becomes the navigator, guiding you through seasons where external voices are silent or unclear. It becomes the anchor, holding you steady when emotions try to pull you off course. It becomes the fire, keeping you warm when life gets cold. You cannot always control what happens around you, but you can control what happens within you. You can choose the words you plant in the soil of your mind. You can choose the temperature you set for your destiny. You can choose whether your inner dialogue builds walls or opens doors. The power is not around you, it is within you. Growth requires discomfort, and yet every instinct inside us tries to avoid it. We reach for convenience, predictability, and ease, while destiny keeps whispering for us to step into spaces that stretch us. The truth is, uncomfortable places are the only places where transformation can take root. Nothing significant ever grows in the soil of comfort. Comfort protects who you are, but discomfort develops who you're meant to be. Whenever life begins to pull you into unfamiliar territory, it is not trying to break you. It is trying to introduce you to capabilities you didn't know you carried. Most people misunderstand discomfort. They see struggle and think something is wrong with their path. They feel pressure and assume it's a sign to retreat. But discomfort is often the signal that you're transitioning out of a version of yourself that cannot carry the weight of what's next. Growth stretches your identity the way a seed is stretched before it becomes a tree. The shell must crack. The ground must press it. The darkness must surround it. Only then can something new push through. Your greatest lessons rarely come from peaceful seasons. You don't learn resilience where everything is easy. You don't discover courage when the path is smooth. You don't uncover discipline when you have no opposition. Growth requires the kind of discomfort that reveals what you're made of. It exposes your patterns, your tendencies, your emotional reflexes. It forces you to confront the habits and beliefs that have kept you stagnant. That confrontation is uncomfortable, but it is also sacred because you cannot heal what you refuse to face. Discomfort also teaches you how powerful you really are. You don't learn your capacity by staying within the limits of what feels safe. You learn it by doing what scares you, by trying what challenges you, by pushing past the edges of your familiar world. Every time you step into discomfort, you're expanding the borders of your potential. It might feel like pressure, but it's actually your life making room for your next season. Think about the moments that changed you the most. They were not the moments where everything aligned easily. They were the moments when you didn't know how you would make it. They were the nights you cried and still got up the next morning. They were the days when you felt unqualified but showed up anyway. They were the seasons when everything felt uncertain and yet something in you refused to quit. That discomfort built stamina. It built trust in yourself. It built wisdom. It built strength. It built a version of you that comfort could never produce. One of the greatest misunderstandings about discomfort is the belief that it means you're out of place. In reality, discomfort is confirmation that you are evolving. When a caterpillar enters a cocoon, the transformation is messy, tight, restrictive. If it judged the process by comfort, it would assume something is wrong. But the discomfort is what allows the metamorphosis to take place. Without the pressure, without the breaking down, the wings would never form. The same is true for you. Your discomfort is preparing you for dimensions you cannot yet see. There is always resistance before elevation. Muscles grow through tension. Diamonds form through heat. Rivers carve new paths through force. And people develop character, resilience, and depth through discomfort. Trying to avoid discomfort is like trying to grow without stretching. You stay the same size. You stay in the same patterns. You stay in the same life. Nothing new comes from refusing to be uncomfortable. When you embrace discomfort, you start to realize that it's not the enemy, it's the catalyst. Suddenly the fear loses some of its power.
you stop seeing pressure as punishment and start seeing it as promotion. You begin to understand that every uncomfortable season is shaping something in you that comfort never will.
Discomfort teaches you endurance. It teaches you patience. It teaches you flexibility.
It teaches you discernment. It teaches you gratitude.
It teaches you who you are beyond your limits. There will always be a moment in growth where you want to run back to what's familiar simply because it feels safe.
But safety is not the same as purpose.
Familiarity is not the same as destiny. The life you desire is on the other side of discomfort, not on the inside of it. If you only embrace what feels easy, you'll repeat who you've always been. If you embrace what feels uncomfortable, you'll rise into what you were always capable of becoming. What you speak to yourself in private determines what you become in public, because identity is shaped long before anyone sees the results. The quiet conversations you have when the world isn't watching create the architecture of your confidence, the structure of your decisions, and the tone of your presence. You cannot separate the public version of yourself from the private dialogue that formed it. Every step you take, every opportunity you pursue, every boundary you enforce, every dream you dare to hold comes from the whispers you tell yourself when no one else is listening. People often focus on polishing their public image, managing how others perceive them, impressing audiences, or gaining approval. But what truly shapes your life is not the performance you give to the world. It's the rehearsal happening within your own mind. The world sees your actions, but your thoughts are what give those actions power or weakness. You may project confidence outwardly, but if your inner voice is filled with doubt, that insecurity will leak through your choices. You may speak boldly in front of others, but if your inner dialogue is fragile, your courage will crumble the moment adversity shows up. The internal voice always reveals itself eventually, because you cannot consistently behave in a way that contradicts the conversation you're having within yourself. Your private thoughts set the boundaries of your belief system. They determine how high you reach, how far you go, and how deeply you trust yourself. If you tell yourself that you're unworthy, you will subconsciously move through life seeking confirmation of that lie. You'll shrink in rooms where you belong. You'll settle for relationships that diminish you. You'll silence your ideas because you assume they don't matter. But if your inner voice speaks life, speaks truth, speaks possibility, you'll begin to walk through doors with certainty. You'll see challenges as opportunities. You'll stop waiting for permission to be who you already are. Most people lose battles internally long before they lose them externally. They look confident on the outside, but on the inside, they're negotiating with fear, replaying past failures, and entertaining thoughts of inadequacy. This internal conflict creates a gap between who they are and who they want to be. Until that gap is confronted, no amount of public success will silence private doubt. What you whisper to yourself determines whether you walk with your head high or carry invisible burdens of insecurity. The private voice you nurture becomes the narrator of your story. It can tell a story of strength or a story of insufficiency. It can tell a story of resilience or a story of regret. It can tell a story of destiny or a story of defeat. The story you choose becomes the story you live. Your inner dialogue either empowers your purpose or sabotages your potential. And what makes this so powerful is that no one else hears the dialogue but you, yet everyone eventually sees the results of it. This is why personal integrity in your inner life is so important. If your private thoughts are misaligned with your public goals, your life will feel divided. You'll chase dreams while doubting your ability to reach them. You'll work hard but secretly believe you don't deserve success. You'll show up for opportunities but expect failure. And people will sense the tension even if they can't name it. You are most magnetic, most authentic, and most impactful when your inner voice supports your external actions. The transformation you desire begins with the language you speak to yourself. Words carry creative power, especially when spoken internally. If you consistently tell yourself that you are capable, your mind begins to look for evidence to support that belief. If you tell yourself you are enough, your actions start aligning with that truth. If you remind yourself of your strength, your posture changes, your decisions strengthen, and your presence commands respect. You cannot become powerful publicly while speaking powerlessness privately. Think about the moments when you took a bold step. Before the step came the thought. Before the decision came the self-talk. Before the courage came the internal agreement that you were capable of more. Every victory started with a private affirmation. Every defeat started with a private surrender. The private space is where destiny is shaped. Your private conversations are the soil where your future grows. If that soil is filled with negativity, fear, and self-criticism, nothing healthy can grow. But if the soil is filled with truth, encouragement, and intentionality, you create an atmosphere where your gifts can flourish. What you become in public is simply the harvest of what you planted in private. Endurance is a spiritual strategy, not just a personality trait or personal preference. It is a deliberate choice to stay planted when everything in you wants to run, to keep moving when everything around you feels stuck, to hold on when letting go seems easier. Many people think endurance is passive, as if it means simply waiting and suffering in silence. But true endurance is active. It is a spiritual posture, a disciplined stance, a declaration that you refuse to bow to circumstances that contradict your calling. Endurance is what separates those who dream from those who fulfill their destiny.
Every significant breakthrough requires a period of persistence that feels longer than you expected. You pray, you push, you give, you stretch, and still the door doesn't open. You do the right things, but the wrong things keep happening. You show up consistently, yet the results seem invisible.
This is the space where most people quit, not because they're incapable, but because they misinterpret the delay.
They see the waiting season as a sign of failure or misdirection.
But what if the waiting is the strategy? What if endurance is the very thing strengthening you for what's ahead? What if the delay is preparing your character to sustain what your heart has been asking for? Endurance is not glamorous. It does not attract applause. People will cheer for your arrival, but they won't witness your staying. They'll celebrate your success, but they won't see the lonely nights you spent refusing to collapse under pressure. They won't hear the prayers you whispered when hope felt thin. They won't see the moments when you had to talk yourself out of quitting. Endurance is a private battle that produces public strength. It is the unseen work that supports the visible victory. Some seasons require you to stand still, not because you're not ready to move, but because God is preparing the environment around you. You might be ready for the opportunity, but the opportunity is not yet positioned for you. Endurance keeps you rooted long enough for alignment to occur. It keeps you from stepping into places prematurely. It protects you from walking through doors that look good but aren't good for you. Endurance is a spiritual strategy because it guards you from yourself, from impatience, from fear, from impulsive decisions that could derail your destiny. Endurance also teaches you how to hear with clarity when life is chaotic, when your emotions are loud, when everything feels urgent. You cannot discern what is real, but endurance slows you down. It forces you to breathe. It forces you to listen. It forces you to develop spiritual sensitivity. In the quiet of endurance, your discernment sharpens. You learn to distinguish between your voice, fear's voice, and the divine voice. Without endurance, you would rush into choices driven by emotion instead of purpose. There are times when endurance feels like weakness because you're not doing anything flashy or visible. Yet endurance is actually one of the strongest expressions of faith. It takes faith to wait. It takes faith to trust. It takes faith to stay committed when you have no evidence that things are changing. Endurance says, I believe even when I don't see. I stand even when I don't understand. I remain even when I'm tired. That posture builds spiritual muscle. It stabilizes your heart. It deepens your capacity. It develops the maturity needed for long-term success. Life will always offer you exits, easy ways out, shortcuts, seductive distractions, shortcuts masked as opportunities. Endurance is a strategy that keeps you from settling for temporary relief at the expense of permanent purpose. It allows you to resist the urge to abandon the process just because it's uncomfortable. Every time you endure, you strengthen your identity. You become someone who doesn't break easily, doesn't quit quickly, doesn't fold under pressure. Endurance is also the gateway to wisdom. While you are waiting, you observe more, you learn more,
You grow in ways you wouldn't have if everything came instantly. You start to understand patterns, timing, and the deeper purpose behind each challenge.
endurance sharpens your perception. It reveals your inner strength, exposing the parts of you that were dormant. You begin to realize that you don't need everything to change around you. Sometimes the change happening within you is the real miracle. Endurance doesn't mean the journey gets easier. It means you get stronger. It means you develop the resilience required to carry larger responsibilities, greater opportunities, and deeper relationships. Without endurance, you would crumble under the weight of the blessings you've been praying for. With endurance, you become the kind of person who can hold what you receive without breaking under its pressure.
Trust the timing. The process knows more than you do,
Even when everything in you aches for answers, clarity, and progress. We are conditioned to believe that speed equals success. That acceleration is the proof of alignment, and that anything slow must be broken. But timing is not measured by your impatience. It is measured by the precise unfolding of your development. Every season you walk through has its own intelligence, its own purpose, its own rhythm. And sometimes the greatest favor in your life is that things did not happen when you wanted them to. There are moments when you feel ready, when your heart is burning with expectation, when you are convinced the door should open simply because your desire is strong. But desire is not preparation. Passion is not positioning. Excitement is not maturity. The process knows the difference. It knows when your character is strong enough to sustain what you are asking for. It knows when your emotional foundation can handle the weight of the next season. It knows when your mindset has shed enough old thinking to embrace new opportunities without sabotaging them. You think you're waiting on timing, but timing might be waiting on you. One of the hardest truths to accept is that delays are not always setbacks. Sometimes they are protection. Sometimes they are redirection. Sometimes they are refinement. You think the pause means the promise is gone, but the pause is often proof that the promise is being preserved. There are connections you would have mishandled if they had entered your life earlier. There are opportunities you would have wasted because you didn't yet have the wisdom to steward them. There are platforms that would have crushed you because you were still carrying unresolved wounds. The timing you call slow is the process ensuring you don't receive something prematurely and lose it unnecessarily. Trusting the timing requires humility. It demands admitting that you cannot see the full picture from where you stand. You only see the moment. The process sees the map. You see your desire. The process sees the detours you must take to build resilience. You see the dream. The process sees the preparation required for you to handle the responsibility attached to it. You see the surface. The process sees the roots that need to grow deeper. When nothing is happening visibly, something is happening invisibly. Timing is working beneath the surface, aligning people, doors, resources, and opportunities you don't even know you'll need yet. When you rush the process, you disrupt the timing. You end up forcing outcomes that don't fit you. You settle for relationships that don't honor you. You accept jobs that drain you. You commit to paths that limit you. Rushing creates regret. Timing creates alignment. The process waits until everything is positioned to support your elevation, not collapse under it. This is why forcing what isn't ready always leads to frustration. What belongs to you moves smoothly. What isn't aligned fights you at every turn. There are seasons when the timing feels painfully slow. You pray, you prepare, you show up, you do the inner work, and still nothing shifts. Those are the seasons that test your trust the most. Can you believe in the process even when you feel forgotten? Can you honor the timing even when you feel overlooked? Can you keep moving with intention even when progress seems invisible? The people who rise are not the ones who avoid waiting, but the ones who learn how to wait without losing themselves. They stay grounded. They stay committed. They stay faithful to their development even when circumstances look stagnant. Timing has a way of revealing its wisdom in hindsight. You look back and realize that if you had gotten what you wanted earlier, you would not have been able to hold it. You see how delays positioned you for connections you wouldn't have made otherwise. You see how detours saved you from mistakes you didn't have the maturity to avoid at that time. You see how seasons that felt wasted were actually seasons that built the very strength you're now standing on. What once felt like divine silence becomes divine strategy when seen from the other side. The process knows when to open doors, when to close them, and when to keep you in a hallway long enough to develop clarity, discipline, and identity. Trusting the timing is trusting that nothing meant for you will pass you, and nothing not meant for you will stay. It is trusting that every delay carries intention, every shift carries wisdom, and every season carries preparation. The timing is never random. The process is never confused. It knows exactly what you need, when you need it, and who you must become before the promise can meet you where you are.